All right. Now, speaking of America, Jake, we're going to dive into this a little bit. Now, obviously, everyone's minds and thoughts are on America. We're not going to talk about that so much because you can listen to basically any podcast that's been released this week.
All the news.
Any sort of news. They would have an analysis, and anything that we say at the moment will have changed by the time I get a chance to edit this and upload it anyway. So let's just go through a little bit of how this is connected to Australia, because we've got two prominent politicians, Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese, who Scott Morrison obviously having quite a positive relationship with the US. Yes. Isn't coming out and saying that Donald Trump's filled with lies and that this is, blah, blah, blah. He's just happy to work with whoever. However, Anthony Albanese, not so much. Not so much. He's getting on the teenagey, angsty bandwagon, Jake.
You're entirely correct. Yeah, no. Anthony Albanese, the opposition leader, slammed Scott Morrison for failing to contact President Trump and convey Australia's view that democratic process must be respected. Quote, Scott Morrison has a close relationship with President Trump. We saw that when he attended the de facto campaign rally in Ohio with President Trump. He should be contacting President Trump and conveying Australia's strong view that democratic processes must be respected.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I'm sure he would do exactly the same thing in Scott Morrison's position.
Yeah, I guarantee you he wouldn't. I 10 billion% guarantee you that he wouldn't, because of the whole fact that you can't antagonize your allies. Even if Biden did actually come through, let's just say that if Biden came through, Biden ends up getting the presidency, we still have to work with the US until Biden is actually inaugurated in whatever it is, three or so months' time. So we still have to work with that lame duck president. And at this stage, we can't say one way or the other. Biden says he has a path to the presidency. Trump says that he's already won. So,
all right. So what would it mean? Let's throw our predicting hat into the ring. I lost my $25 on Sportsbet apparently with Trump winning. They've changed it now to I think it's $10 for Trump to win, and about $1.10 for Biden to be winning at this stage. So let's project. Let's put on our Biden hats, Jake, and let's get our Walker frames out and put our false teeth in. Yeah. And let's hypothesize, what would a Biden presidency mean for Australia, other than probably, I would argue, about 4 times as long as phone calls, just to try and get through the same amount of information.
Well, we might actually accomplish some talking on those phone calls.
Right. Okay.
So it's possible. It's possible that you're definitely right. We wouldn't just be sitting there going, yep. Yep. Agree. Nice to talk to you, Mr. President Biden. So it is possible that there might be some bilateral relationships established rather than just some unilateral relationships, if you get my drift.
I do.
In a Biden presidency. So there's lots of things, and there's been lots of commentary this week. Interestingly enough, there's even been a bunch of off-the-record politicians speaking to the media, saying that they, from their perspective and from their cabinet's perspective, and this is from really both sides of the two major parties, that the major prevailing hope is that Biden does win. And it's for a number of different sides. It's the premise of international affairs, free trade. Mm-hmm. It's from the global health perspective. Mm-hmm. Not so much from the Liberal National Party on the Biden climate change angle. Yeah. We're not necessarily, the Liberal National Party doesn't necessarily want to be pushed to do something. Essentially, some of the commentary is former intelligence chief Alan Gingle. There we are. Got his name. Who's now the president of Australia Institute of International Affairs. He says that there's a yearning across Canberra for a return to some sort of normalcy.
Yes.
In Washington.
I think that yearning has stretched quite some some distance.
Yeah, you might actually say that it started in the US and has proliferated outwards.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
at least from half of the US anyway. Officials have, of course, watched with dismay as the administration ditched the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah.
Left the World Health Organization, of course, and abandoned the Paris Accord on climate change, which actually takes effects, I think, this later on this week, on Wednesday this week. So, and of course, many Australian observers believe that Biden will try to carve out spaces for cooperation, including on climate change and global health, particularly during the pandemic. But very likely there's going to be very likely a minimal change to international relations to in most regards, and foreign policy. I should say, there's still most likely going to be pretty well the same policy on China, i.e., America wants China to essentially be play on the world stage with fairly equal footing for everyone, and they're wanting to reevaluate things in that regard. But I would say that that's not likely to necessarily change at all under a Biden presidency, because essentially Biden has always had that ideal when it came to China. And as I said, there's likely to be some ructions between the US and Australia around climate policy because, of course, Biden has been relatively outspoken towards his desire for action on climate change, whereas the Liberal National Party of Australia has perhaps not been.
Yeah, so we have to be seen to be doing something. Now, you brought up China there, Jake. I was watching Emma Shortis, research fellow at MIT, on ABC this week. She said that Mike Pompeo was recently in Darwin and basically said to Australia that we're going to have to choose between the US and China when it comes to these when it comes to the China-Australia trade relationships. Now, that has been really, really put into the forefront this week with China flexing its muscles around apparently 7 key Australian products, including wine, lobster, sugar, coal, and timber. These trades are worth $6 billion a year in an overall $1.3 trillion economy. So this is we are going to have those really strong relationships with the US over these matters, and It's interesting because as much as Biden is putting himself back into the Paris Accord on climate change as a matter of urgency, according to the news, it seems to me like a lot of Americans actually thought it was quite a good thing that they got out of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and economically and relationship wise with international countries as well.
Yeah, I mean, as we have said many, many times, when it comes to American politics, just about everything is multifaceted.
Yes.
So, I mean, ultimately, what his priorities actually are, if he actually gains the presidency, remains to be seen. He's named a whole series of policies within his first 100 days. But I would suggest that, a lot of the rhetoric around, perhaps Americans not liking things like the Paris Accords or the World Health Organization were likely heavily tainted by rhetoric from the president that, preceded the removal of those, of the US from those organizations. So we will just have to see.
All right.
We will just have to see.